President Trump has made a deal with China. Has he made a huge mistake? Welcome to China Uncensored. I'm Chris Chappell, and this episode is sponsored by you. Every week, I make 4 free episodes of China Uncensored for everyone to enjoy on YouTube, because my goal is to tell as many people as possible about the Chinese Communist Party. I can only afford to do that with your support. Subscribe to my new premium website, ChinaUncensored.tv. It has a bunch of exclusive content that doesn't get put on YouTube, and you'll be making these free episodes possible for everyone else to learn about China. And that's important because did Trump just fold to China? People either think he just made the ultimate art of the deal, or his tariff hammer is looking less mighty. Side note, tariff hammer sounds like the worst DLC weapon in Fortnite. Over this past weekend, the US and Chinese officials met in Geneva, and each agreed to slash tariffs for 90 days. So, until August 12th, which, I kid you not, is Milkman Day, a real holiday showing appreciation for a defunct profession known mostly for adultery jokes. China also said it would cancel or suspend some non-tariff trade measures, potentially including easing export restrictions on critical minerals used in batteries and other high-tech applications, though nothing concrete has come out as of this recording. This is great news for Wall Street, but for others watching, this is a huge head-scratcher. One poster on X asked, what exactly was the point of any of this, if not to decouple from China or get trade barrier concessions? Why impose such high tariffs in the first place? Part of the confusion might be that, despite the White House calling it a trade deal, this is no trade deal. This is just a 90-day pause for another agreement in the near future. Basically a deal to make a deal later, which is a much more convoluted art. So who won the non-deal deal? Pro-CCP shills are already painting this as a massive win for China and a huge loss for the US. China called Trump's bluff. Trump caved, and now China got everything they asked for. Chinese state-run media is pushing the same narrative as well, saying China took a tough stance on US threats and managed to get tariffs down without making concessions. I know, Chinese media praising China. What next? Hot fire? But it's not just the pro-CCP shills saying that. Even CCP critics, like Christopher Balding, whom we've had on the show, say this is actually a fair point by Chinese state media. China really hasn't made any concessions. Even Gordon Chang, who has a reputation for being a bit of a downer on China, says this is a win for China. This account, Byron Wan, that I follow, says all the US gets now is just China's agreement to talk, which is nothing but a delaying tactic. Really? And here I thought talks with China were always so productive. It's not all that simple, of course. There are still a bunch of policies in place in America that hurt China. For example, there's Trump's crackdown on the de minimis exemptions that made cheap Chinese goods from China tax-free, although Trump did partially cut the de minimis tariffs. Meanwhile, China's EVs, steel, and aluminum come with their own separate tariffs, and there are still port fees on Chinese ships. And pharmaceuticals from China may be exempt from tariff reductions. But still, there's no denying the fact that the tariff reductions saved China, which as an export economy would have been hurt a lot more than the US in the ongoing trade war. In fact, Sino Insider, a risk consultancy that specializes in Chinese politics, says Beijing has greater motivation to push for trade negotiations first. So why did Trump agree to bring down the tariffs? Wasn't the whole point of tariffs to decouple the world from China and stop the world economic order from further empowering the CCP? Now, I don't know what exactly is going on in Trump's head because all the hairspray interferes with my telepathy. But if we take his words at face value, it seems Trump thinks that there's progress to be made with an actual deal during the tariff pause. Trump now claims that China has agreed to fully open itself up to American businesses.
The best part of the deal was that we opened up China. China agreed to open itself up to American business to go in.
Does he not realize American businesses are already in China? Like famous American fast food restaurant KFG, or Uncle Martian, or Sunbucks. I love going there and sitting back, having a cup of coffee, and enjoying Harry Potter and the Leopard Walk Up to Dragon. U.S. officials also echo Trump's sentiments and portray this as a victory for the U.S. They seem confident that the U.S. and China can seriously work together on things like a fair trade deal and other things like stopping Chinese fentanyl from coming into the U.S., especially after seeing Xi Jinping's security czar, Wang Xiaohong, participate in trade talks.
And I think that we saw here in Geneva that the Chinese are now serious about assisting the U.S. in stopping the flow of precursor drugs, because the Chinese brought their trade delegation, led by the vice premier, but they also brought a deputy minister for security who was their fentanyl expert.
Oh, so maybe they could just ask him directly to have the Chinese Communist Party stop purposefully sending so much fentanyl to the U.S. Because talking to the CCP is always so productive and China's always so honest. So is Trump as wildly successful as his supporters make him out to be? Is this 4D, nay, 8D chess at play? I'm very skeptical, though I genuinely hope Trump has something up his sleeve besides a deal for a later deal. The thing is, China is very cautious of allowing any foreign business to come into its market. In fact, it's been increasing crackdowns on them. And if there's anything that I've learned from years of China analysis, it's that China does not abide by deals. I trust them about as much as I trust a glass of tap water from a Tijuana septic tank. Trump himself should know he pushed to make a trade deal with China during his first term in office, only to see China break its promises almost immediately. And the fact that it was almost immediately and not immediately is a personal best for China. The Trump administration, of course, blames Biden for not enforcing the deal.
We had an excellent trade agreement with China, and the Biden administration chose not to enforce it. The Chinese delegation basically told us that once President Biden came into office, they just ignored their obligations.
Maybe Biden just needed to talk to them some more. On top of that, China promised to curb fentanyl to Obama and Trump and Biden and now Trump again. I don't think they're going to do it. There are a gazillion other examples of China breaking promises and deals, and I'm not exaggerating. The real number might actually be a gazillion. Remember when they promised democracy to Hong Kong? How'd that go? When Obama asked China not to militarize the South China Sea, China said sure. And, well, we know how that worked out. China also promised to not conduct cyber theft of intellectual property or hack into U.S. infrastructure. Double whelp. That aged fantastically. China also broke World Trade Organization commitments it made during the Clinton era to open its markets, reduce state subsidies, and allow fair competition. The Chinese Communist Party doesn't care about keeping promises. If it can get away with breaking the rules, it will. They're communists, after all. The fact is, China already sees itself as at war with the U.S., whether the U.S. wants to acknowledge it or not. It's encouraging its own citizens to see the U.S. as its biggest enemy, though more and more of them are beginning to realize that their real biggest enemy is coming from inside the house. All of this is happening as China rapidly expands its military, because for China, there's no holding back. Unrestricted warfare is the name of the game. So how can you make a deal or have substantial progress with a Marxist-Leninist state that's trying to destroy you, announcing it wants to destroy you, and has lied literally a gazillion times? If Trump is dead set on making any kind of deal with the CCP, then he must impose severe consequences if they violate the terms. No ifs, ands, or buts. There should be no delay, not like how Trump's pushing to keep TikTok alive. The TikTok ban by law should have already happened a long time ago. Trump hopes that he can use that for leverage, but China's taking advantage of that. It continues to turn American youth against the U.S. and even Trump's own policies through the app. Who could have seen that coming? Oh, right, me. And I don't even have to use my telepathy. That's why, for a deal with China to succeed, Trump needs to be willing to follow through with harsh punishment when the CCP inevitably breaks its agreements. whether or not it's from his questionably mighty tariff hammer. Speaking of unreliable partners, YouTube. YouTube is burying China Uncensored in search results and not notifying you of new episodes, even if you're subscribed and have the notification bell on. Felix says we haven't been in his feed since November. Aaron Paul thought we just stopped making videos. But we figured out a way around YouTube not telling you about new episodes. We have a new free weekly newsletter that will have all the episodes that came out that week, even the ones YouTube didn't tell you about, plus exclusive analysis you won't see anywhere else. The link is below. And don't forget to show YouTube how much you love China Uncensored by leaving a comment below with the honeypot emoji in honor of everyone's favorite Pooh Bear. Once again, I'm Chris Chappell. Thank you for watching China Uncensored.